So it's evident in the claim statistics over the past years and in 2022 that there's an issue with the lack of security when transporting goods. What risk management tactics do you recommend for logistics companies and shippers to help prevent and reduce the exposure of the freight being stolen while in transit?
I think there's a few different things that the companies can do. One is just better vetting of carriers. If it's at all possible, making sure that you're not double brokering the loads. Working directly with the carriers can be helpful as well, or your freight broker. Just making sure that the loads aren't being double brokered because then you lose visibility even further and other additional control over what's happening to your freight. In terms of actually managing risk on the in transit portion, the biggest thing is just minimizing the number of stops that you're going to have. And if there are stops, make sure that they're in approved locations. Essentially, keep the truck moving as much as possible. That could mean that making sure that when you leave, leaving in your contracts that the logistics companies shouldn't stop within the first 200, 250, or 300 miles if possible, just to minimize the number of stops they have. And that's also when we tend to see the highest risk at the beginning or end of those journeys. Also, as well, check into what kind of arrangements they have if the truck does need to stop. If there's a breakdown, are they able to send another vehicle and transfer the freight? Essentially, just try to keep the truck moving as much as possible. There's other things that you can do to reduce in-transit risk as well. If you're transporting really high-value freight, there's things like door open alarms that you can use on trailers. For most types of freight, though, we suggest using a high security seal, which means the ISO 17712 standard seal, making sure that the drivers are trained in security awareness more generally as well. So how to recognize when they're being followed, what to do when they're being followed, how to report on that, and how to keep steady lines of communications with the drivers and their dispatch. Then also that if they do stop at a rest area or to refuel, just having sort of general awareness of the area, that they're checking the seal, checking the container or trailer to make sure that that's still intact as well.
So a lot of times some insurance companies will also require that there's some sort of GPS freight tracking system contained in the freight. Do you recommend those as well as another value-added risk management tactic to help keep track of the freight?
Yes, definitely. GPS tracking and because of the proliferation of Internet of Things, in some cases the trucks themselves are connected to the internet, the driver's phone is connected to the internet. It's much easier to track a trailer now than it used to be. There's lots of different ways to track or a trailer or a load. What we recommend is making sure though that you have good governance around all of that as well. So making sure that the company you're working with for the GPS tracking has good protocols for contacting you if something does go wrong or if something does happen, that they're aware of any blind spots in the GPS and have protocols for that as well, that they're aware of the trip length and proposed trip route to ensure that they have enough battery for the GPS devices at the ping rate that you want, checking on what that ping rate is going to be in order to better control and monitor what's happening with the GPS device. I think we do sometimes find that people fall into a bit of a trap where they put a GPS device on or have in-transit tracking, and they think that that sort of takes care of anything. Well, everything. What we find that is that how to respond to events the GPS tracking generates and the governance around that is just as important as the actual device itself.